and welcome back to the Fiber of My Being podcast, a podcast about knitting and other fiber, yarny arts. And joining me for my intro today is our kitten, Agatha. I haven't shown her in a while, and so I wanted to show just how humongous she's getting. It's crazy. And she's a bit of a cuddly cat, but she doesn't want to cuddle right now because she wants to go and play. So I'll let her go and play. But that is Agatha, our kitten. And I guess I should introduce myself since I'm introducing cats. My name's Megan, and I will be your host for today. And I'm coming to you from the heart of Pennsylvania, where I live with my husband, Paul, who I just saw running by out the window. He's out working out right now. And our 3 cats, Agatha the kitten, who you just met, and then we also have Mary and Esther, who may or may not make appearances. Esther probably won't unless I drag her onto the podcast, but Mary might pop up behind me like she has for a few weeks now. And you can find me on Ravelry as Fiber of My Being and on Instagram as Megan Tomkeel. And I will link all of that below when I do the show notes, which I will do the show notes. And just as a little bit of a setting here, it's actually Thanksgiving Day right now. So it's the morning. It's, I guess, probably almost 11 o'clock. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is on the TV in the background, so if I'm looking up, it's probably because I'm looking at all of the strange things that are there. My husband and I like to watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. Not because we like the things in it, but because it's kind of a sort of, I don't even know how to articulate why we watch it. We find it really weird that most of the parade is already celebrating Christmas. I like Christmas, but I want it to start on December 24th and 25th when Christmas starts. I'm not so keen on Christmas starting before Halloween's even over, and Thanksgiving's one of my favorite holidays, so I'm definitely not happy with Thanksgiving being overshadowed by Christmas. So yeah, we're kind of watching it as a grim sort of entertainment. And also, I really like watching the dog show on Thanksgiving Day, and so we've got it on in the background so that I don't miss the start of that. Hopefully we'll be around for it. But yeah, so this was about the only time that I could find to film this week. And like I said, Paul is out running right now to get a quick workout in. So I figured I might as well just film a quick episode. Hopefully this will be quick because I didn't get a whole lot done since the last time I podcasted. Excuse me. I am drinking, I'm drinking seltzer water from Giant. This is raspberry lime. And sometimes it just makes me burp a little because of all the fizzy bubbles. So excuse me if I burp. It's not very ladylike, but then again, I'm not very ladylike, so just please excuse me. Alright, and so the reason I don't have a whole lot of time to film this podcast for the rest of the week is because tomorrow being Friday, I'm sure this won't be up by then, but we will be headed to just outside of Philly to where I have some family down there, some extended family, because it's our like extended family reunion this weekend. It's actually on Saturday, but since we live kind of farther away than most of the family, we're gonna go down the night before and stay with my aunt and uncle who are hosting the reunion, and so that's gonna be a lot of fun. And I'm packing lots of knitting projects because my family likes to see what I'm working on, and I like to always be knitting. Never not knitting. I believe that's somebody's handle already, but I just appreciate it a lot. So the reason I haven't gotten much done on my knitting this week is because I've been a mostly monogamous knitter, which is kind of crazy for me. But I found a project that I really enjoy working on, and I'm trying to get it finished. So it's not finished yet. That'll show up in works in progress, but I have been working on it a lot. And also, in my last episode, I told you that you could shake your finger at me if I cast on anything new besides my husband's balaclava that I need to finish knitting. So get your fingers out and start shaking them, because I did cast on a thing. But just one thing. Well, sort of two things. I'll get to this in whips too. But yeah, I cast on one thing. But it's something that I don't normally knit, and I'm trying to get into, so I feel like I can justify it just a little. Plus, I was casting it on because I figure it'll make good car knitting for the 3-something hour trip to Philly tomorrow. So I don't feel entirely guilty about it, but I didn't cast on the balaclava, and I feel like that would have made it a lot more justifiable. So, and then the last thing was, I haven't been doing much other knitting, but I did do some sewing, which is not usual for me because, one, I don't usually have a sewing machine. I'm borrowing my mom's sewing machine. And two, sewing generally drives me batty. I just realized why me saying that is so funny, and you will see too when I show you some of the things that I sewed this week. So yeah, normally I feel like sewing is too fiddly with all the little tiny threads, and I tend to get driven crazy by the machine because I don't quite know how to use it. But I kind of bashed my head against the machine a bunch this week, figuratively, until I figured out how to make it work. So I managed to crank out quite a lot of sewing projects. I guess that's the advantage to sewing, is you can finish an object in a lot less time than it takes you to knit an object. So I'm hoping maybe I can figure out how to keep sewing, and start branching out into some other things, like possibly some garments. That would be really cool. But I'm jumping the gun. Let me get to finished objects, shall we? And that's not a finished object. I'm sorry. I'm just not thinking right. My first finished object is my granny shawl. I didn't block this, but I figure it's mostly okay. So this is a nice, heavy shawl that I just thought would be really nice and cozy for the impending winter weather. We've already been getting lots of cold here and lots of snow. Well, not lots of snow, but enough snow to make it very unpleasant when I'm at the animal shelter walking dogs outside. We've had to start fitting them with little coats and I got to fit this little chihuahua with a lovely knit cabled sweater. It was wonderful. But anyway, enough about dogs. You can never say enough about dogs. But I guess I should say a little bit about knitting. And actually, this is crochet. This is my granny shawl, like I said. The pattern is by Nanita on Ravelry. And I just crocheted this out of your standard basic red heart because I have a lot of it on hand and I'm trying to figure out things that I could do with it. And I thought red heart looks very classic in the granny stitch, which is what this is. And I just paired some colors that I like together, and I finally finished weaving in all of the stripes ends, and I quickly zoomed through a little brown border on the outside to round it out. And so I'm just really happy with how this turned out because it's nice and cozy. I can wrap it a bunch of times, or maybe I can't if I want to stay really warm, or it can be more of a dangly scarf, or I haven't really tried it, but I think it's big enough to actually be a shawl. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's nice. Okay, yeah, so I'm just really happy with how this turned out. And I think I'm gonna take it with me on my trip tomorrow to help keep me cozy and warm. So that's my first finished object. And I'll bring it just a little closer so that you can see all the lovely colors and textures. And it's pretty humongous too. So it's just huge. All right, next up in finished objects, I was hoping that Paul would be back to help me model this, but he's not. Hi, Esther. You gonna come over here? No? Let's see if I can grab her. No, she's too wise for me. Esther will make appearances occasionally, but she's the grumpiest of all of our cats. So, a lot of times she doesn't. So, I've shown you previously my husband's old Trilobite hat with all the lovely little trilobites on it. State fossil of Pennsylvania. And it was too small for his head. It's kind of too small for my head too. It's just like a comfy, cozy cap. But it was definitely too small for his head. It didn't even cover his ears. So I knit him another one, and it is now finished. And it's massive on my head, so I won't wear it for very long. But I will bring it and show it to you closer up. Now, I didn't block it yet, and that would probably make it look nicer because the stitches between the trilobites are kind of all wonky right now. But I didn't block it yet because he's been wearing it a lot on his head, and it looks just fine on his head. So, yeah, I'll try and block it at some point soon, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. He's happy with how it turned out. It fits great on him. And this is knit out of Patons classic worsted wool in, I just got plain old white yarn and I dyed it up to look like red shale because that's one of the common and pretty rocks found in Pennsylvania. So it's just a Pennsylvania hat all over. The only way it could be more Pennsylvania is if the yarn came from Pennsylvania, but it's Patons, so I know it didn't. But yeah, his Trilobite hat is finished. And I don't think I said, this pattern is by Hannah Mason, and it's a free pattern, which is just wonderful because it's such a great pattern. I like it so much. So, that's my second finished object. I almost said works in progress. And so my third one is actually about 5 things, because I was sewing this week. And what I started sewing up were project bags. I've been using the holiday project bag tutorial by Nicole from Hue Loco, and I just saw that she had a baby like yesterday or sometime very, very recently, so that's exciting. But I've been using her tutorial to sew up some project bags. So this was my very first one, and I showed you the fabric for this last time because I had it cut out and interfaced and everything. But I finally sewed it up, I think yesterday? No, the day before yesterday. Today's Thursday. I sewed it on Tuesday. So, yeah. And it took me a lot of time to make because I kept not using the machine right and it wasn't working for me. I would sew like one line of stitches and then the machine would decide to crap out on me, and I wasn't sure why, and it was always just little tiny problems, but it compounded and made this a pretty awful experience to sew. And so when I finally finished it, I was kind of like, I don't know if I ever want to do this again, but I did. You'll see. I did. So let me just show you this one a little closer up. So it's got these lovely stripes on the bottom, and I didn't iron this very well because I wasn't very adept at using my iron at first either. But then it's got these little kitties who are playing with yarn. On this side I decided to feature this orange kitty, and on this side I was going more for the blue kitty here. And the brown kitties are featured too, but I was kind of putting a certain kitty kind of right side up on either side. And then inside is this cheetah print fabric, because cats are wild inside, let's face it. So I learned how to put in a zipper and how to box the corners of the bag, and they're not boxed perfectly, but actually this is probably one of the better of the boxed corners, because in later bags I was kind of being a bit more slapdash and I probably shouldn't have, but yeah. What is going on in the parade right now? So many girls in different colored dresses, and they're all dancing, and it's kind of weird. Anyway, so yeah, this was my first ever project bag that I sewed. It's also my first ever project bag because I'm too broke to buy project bags. Yeah, that's really, really weird. I'm just so confused by the parade. But anyway, I will put that down because it has one of my works in progress in it, which I'll show you once I'm done with the finished objects. So my second bag that I sewed up was this one with little owls all over it. I love owls. And then the bottom print is just these little, like, I don't know if you can see, little butterflies. And on this one, I decided to add the tab because on this one, I was just figuring I have enough to worry about without needing to worry about adding a little tab. But then I decided I could probably handle it, so I did. And then let me open this up and show you the inside. It's this lovely, can you see that? Lovely feather print. So yeah, and what kind of tied all of these together, I felt like, was this sort of seafoam green color on the owls and on the butterflies, and then let me flip it around, and then there's some seafoam green feathers there. So, and they're all things that fly too. So well, feathers don't fly on their own, but they are on things that do fly. So therefore, it counts. And this inside has the yarn and the needles for Paul's balaclava that I haven't cast on yet. So I put it in a project bag so it can come with me this weekend, and hopefully I can guilt myself into casting it on. So that's project bag number 2. Project bag number 3. Guys, I love this one so much. It's these sugar skulls for Dia de los Muertos. I studied Spanish in high school and a little bit in college. I'm a bit of a language nerd. I like learning new languages, and I really enjoyed Spanish, and so I just really appreciate the Day of the Dead inspired fabric. It's so bright and colorful, and I picked a yellow zipper to kind of match the flowers and the little pops of color. I thought that was nice. This one also has a tab, and it's actually just lined in the same skull fabric because I liked it so much. I just wanted to make a whole bag out of it. Oh, and all of these bags that I've made are made out of fat quarters. So I just had one fat quarter of the cats and of the stripes and of the cheetah print inside. But this took 2 fat quarters because I was basically using the same fabric in place of 2 different fabrics. But I'm okay with that. I love it. It's a great bag. This is one of my favorites. They're all ones of my favorites. They're all my favorite. So that's project bag number 3. If you can believe it, I went from never wanting to make one again to making 2 more. And so this was made on Tuesday. These were both made yesterday. And that's not all. Guess what I also made yesterday? Another project bag. And this is where it comes in being quite funny that I said the sewing machine drove me batty, because I made a bat project bag with little moons and little bats all over the place. Another little pull tab made out of my lining fabric, which is, if you can see, little stars and moons. So I feel like this is a perfect Halloween-y project bag. Oh, and let me pull the stuff I have out. I have my fox needle felting in here in the hopes that I will have to add legs to it soon, but as you can see, it still doesn't have legs. But the reason I'm pulling this out is because for this project bag, I kind of tried something a little bit different, and I added a pocket. I just made it up as I went along, and I'm sure there's probably an easier way to add a pocket, but I just kind of top stitched it onto the lining fabric before I sewed up the whole bag. So let me just, it's easier if I just pull out the lining, isn't it? There are still threads all over the place because I'm not very good at picking off threads apparently. But I just sewed up this little pocket in the batty fabric again because I had plenty left over. And it's just too small to fit my phone, which is kind of sad. But I wasn't really planning to have it fit my phone. I just, when I sewed it, I was looking and thinking, that looks about phone sized. But it would be if there weren't seams in it. So anyway, inside out bag. So that is the 4th bag I have sewn based on Nicole from Hue Loco's tutorial for the holiday bag. And yeah, so that was all of my boxed wedge project bags. And there might be a little bit of sound here because Paul's coming back from his run. So I might pause for a bit. Hello, I'm back. And I managed to snag a grumpy little Esther who wants to leave desperately. So I will let her. But I thought she should just make a quick appearance here because I was able to grab her. So, if you can believe it, I'm still not done with everything that I have sewn. So yesterday I sewed these 3 project bags after sewing this one the day before. And then I decided, let's go crazy and just make up our own pattern, shall we? So I did. And I made a drawstring bag. A big old fat drawstring bag. I didn't really follow a pattern. I watched several drawstring bag tutorials on YouTube, but I kind of just pulled the things I liked from each tutorial and kind of just made it up as I went along, so I didn't really follow a pattern. And this is made from 2 different fabrics. This lovely deer and owl and tree and moon. I really like these trees right here. I think they're really nice. And then on the other side is moon and stars and lightning bugs, which are the state insect of Pennsylvania. And of course, white-tailed deer, which these don't really have white tails, but oh well, they're deer. White-tailed deer are the state mammal of Pennsylvania. So this is just like a Pennsylvania bag all around. And it's not lined, just because I didn't really feel like figuring out how to line it. And because I felt like it'd be okay. And it's not really interfaced either, but I thought it was fine. It's just kind of a floppy drawstring bag, and I made it using a whole fat quarter for each side because I wanted to use all of this lovely fabric, and I wanted a huge drawstring bag in which I could fit a sweater project, which is what I'm doing right now because I've got all of my Knit Picks Wool of the Andes yarn for my honeycomb Aran pullover, which I haven't actually worked on at all this week, but I'm gonna take it with me when we go to Philly. And I boxed out the corners just so that it can sit a little bit nicer. So it's just this nice wide boxy drawstring bag with just some white ribbon for the drawstrings. And I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. There are a few things I would probably do differently next time. For example, I didn't think to hem up the drawstring channels before I started sewing the rest of the bag. So I had to go in and kind of hand stitch the hem of the drawstring channels, which I just did with a running stitch, and it's probably not the best stitching in the world. It might not hold up, but I figure I can always go back and fix it some other time. But it's functional. It's not too bad for my first kind of winging it project, I think. So this is my Pennsylvania nighttime bag. I'm really happy with it. So that's all of my FOs now. I haven't sewn anything else, although I want to, but I don't really have time right now. And I've buried my works in progress under all of those project bags. So let's move on to works in progress, shall we? And of course, if you see this, you know what's coming because I've been working on my print Oh the Wave Stole. And if you can see, I managed to, I believe that's the graft line right there. I managed to graft the 2 halves together this week. And now it all looks like kind of a mess because I've picked up stitches all the way around the stole, and I've started, it's all stringy everywhere. I've started, don't know if you can see this, I've started knitting the border, which will look a lot nicer when it's blocked, obviously, because it's supposed to be kind of like points here. But it's got this lovely little wave pattern along the border, and I really like how the border join looks here. I've never knit on a border like this before, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm almost done with one of the short ends, and then I'll start going along the long end. I'm really hoping that I have enough yarn for this. I'm kind of playing yarn chicken a little bit. I'm gonna be really, really sad if I don't have enough yarn, but I'm hoping I do. This is still a lot of lace weight yarn. So, yeah. And this pattern is by Uni Jang, and oh man, I'll be right back. I forgot I wanted to show you the label for the yarn. So the yarn that I'm using is from Thirsty Cat Designs. It is dyed by Kelly Straub, and it's her lovely lace base, which is 100% merino, and the color is Springtime. And she has a website. Is that upside down? Yes, it is. I'm sorry. It's upside down and backwards to me, but the camera won't fix upside down. So there's her website, and she's got some lovely yarns. And I'm really liking how this kind of just tonal green yarn is knitting up into this lovely lace shawl. It's not too busy. I think it works just right. So yeah, hopefully by next week this will be done and won't look like a weird caterpillar. That's kind of what it looks like right now, is a caterpillar. So yeah, and this is what I've been knitting on mostly monogamously because I really want to get it done. I'm really enjoying knitting it, so maybe I don't want to get it done too, because then I can't knit it anymore, and that would be sad. My second work in progress is in my first project bag, and this was the one that I cast on, and I shouldn't have, but it's really out of character for me to knit this, so I'm hoping that I can kind of start a new habit, and it is socks. Sorry for all the dangly, it's all tangled up. How does that go? I don't know. How about I just show you the nicer looking side, shall we? So, as you can see, I'm trying to get myself into sock knitting by knitting 2 at a time socks. And they look a little funny right now because all the stitches are bunched up, but I have started the actual leg of the sock now. So, yeah, knitting 2 at a time on 1 needle because I'm hoping that that will help me get a finished pair of socks with minimal mental effort. So, and the yarn that I'm using here is Premier Yarns Wool Free Sock, just because I had it in my stash. And the pattern that I'm using is the basic sock pattern that's on their yarn label, because I figured why complicate matters. I'm just gonna try and knit a basic pair of socks. So the yarn color, I'll just get one of these out. So you can see I'm not trying to match them because I figured that was, I just want to knit a pair of socks and I don't care if they match. So I want to just use up all the yarny goodness in this pair, and then maybe eventually I'll work on matching. But the yarn colorway is called Grand Canyon, and I just love it. It's all these beautiful browns and oranges, and I've never knit with self-patterning yarn before too, so I'm really excited about this. And then over here you can see some of the blues. I really like this blue stripe at the beginning of the cuff, and then I absolutely love this tealy turquoise color that started right when I started the leg. And I haven't knit these too much because I was mostly trying to get them started and get them both on the same needle so that they're ready for traveling tomorrow, and I don't have to do a whole bunch of thoughtful knitting in the car. I can just keep knitting all the way around, and yeah, so I just knit up the cuffs already so that I could put them on the same needle, because I'm following Mina of the Knitting Expat podcast's tutorial on how to knit 2 at a time socks. So I did what she does, where she knits the whole cuff first separately for each sock and then joins them together, and that wasn't too bad. So yeah, that's my second work in progress. And my third work in progress, I haven't shown this in a while, but it actually got some progress today, or this week, mostly yesterday. And that is my temperature blanket. I'm still really behind. This is October that I'm working on, like from this black line up. This is all in October, so it's November. I'm pretty behind. But I have been catching up. I did like 10 rows yesterday, and if I keep doing that every day, I should hopefully be caught up by the end of November. And then I can just do a row a day throughout December to finish it off. And this is crocheted out of Red Heart because it's cheap and comes in large quantities for making a blanket. And this blanket is huge. That's not even all of it. Here's the rest of it. This is just a massive blanket. It might even fit our queen-sized bed, so we'll see. But I have been working on it, so that's good. I need to sew in all the ends, though. All of them. That's gonna be a nightmare. But yeah, so that's my third whip. So I do have a little bit to go in acquisitions. Oh, and by the way, I'm crocheting that blanket on an eye hook. I have an ergo hook because I only have this one ergo hook, but I figured for a project that's gonna be that's gonna take a lot of crocheting, like this blanket, it's nice to have a comfy hook for that size project. And plus, eye hook is what I commonly use for worsted weight crochet, so it's probably my most used crochet hook. So I just figured it'd be nice to have a nice comfortable one so my hands don't hurt quite as much. So yeah, acquisitions, sorry. I do have an acquisition on the way, and I also have an acquisition here. So my acquisition on the way is that I saw that Knit Picks was having their sale, and so I bought a couple of different yarns. 2 balls each because they usually only sell things in 50 grams and I needed 100. But so I won't say too much more about what I ordered yet, because hopefully it will be here for the next time I podcast and then I can just show you. But I'm really excited about it. And then I also got this as a Yarny acquisition. It's upside down, I'm sorry. This is Martha Stewart Crafts. It's her glitter eyelash yarn. And yes, it is glittery and an eyelash yarn. It's a bulky weight yarn because that's usually what eyelash is. The colorway is Florentine Gold, and it's 78% polyester and 22% metallic polyester. I was reading the French for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't realize it until I got to the word metallique, and I was like, that's not English. I don't really know French that well, so. But I guess this is a Lion brand yarn, and I got it for 99 cents at Ollie's. We were at Ollie's for something else. I don't even remember what, but I saw these glittery eyelash yarns for sale, and I just thought it'd be good to have. I like having little bits of this eyelash yarn around for accents in certain projects, and I really liked the gold color, so I got it. So that was a pretty guilt-free acquisition because it was only 99 cents. But yeah, so I guess I'll move on to goals for the week. So my goal number 1 is to cast on Paul's balaclava because I have mine already done, have for a few weeks. And I think I'm putting off casting on his because it's not the most exciting knitting. It's just 2x2 rib in the round for a very long time. But I should really cast his on now because it's starting to get colder and he might need it soon. And then goal number 2 is to try to finish my Print o' the Wave stole so that it's not this bunchy, jumbly mess. It'd be great if it was a pretty long, flowing stole. And then goal number 3 is just kind of to keep hacking away at my other works in progress, like the temperature blanket and those socks. Hopefully I can get the fox to have legs. I have packed up my Rodical brioche scarf, which I didn't work on at all this week, in the hopes that I can keep working on that because it won't take me that long to finish this project. I've just been dawdling. So yeah, I think that's my general goals. And then sort of dream goals are, since I learned how to sew on my mom's sewing machine a bit more, I would really like to start trying to sew some other projects. So I found a tutorial, a channel online on YouTube that I really liked called Made Every Day, and she, I believe her name's Dana, has some really great tutorials about how to make certain patterns, sewing patterns, and kind of tailor them to fit you. How to sort of do the math yourself and just make things that fit. And so I really want to try to sew a pencil skirt out of knit fabric. She's got a tutorial for that. And then a circle skirt out of just your basic woven fabric or whatnot. I think that would be really fun to try and sew some of that. So if you can't tell, I want to get into some garment sewing. And I figure that skirts is probably a good way to start because they're a pretty basic garment that doesn't take a whole lot of fitting to get it right. So I figure I could kind of hone my skills with that a little bit. And then I'm also looking at, I've put it on my Christmas wish list now. I really want to get the Love at First Stitch book by Tilly and the Buttons because I think it looks like a really good kind of progressive sewing book for how to sew garments, and everything in that book is just beautiful. I really want to make my own pajama pants and those skirts are beautiful, and the shirt and the dresses are probably a long way off for me, but I would just love to start like progressing through some garments that I could make, and hopefully try and learn enough so that I can start making some of my own clothes, because it's hard for me to find clothes that I like and that fit me right, because I'm not exactly an average body type. So I think that I'm starting to get enough of a hang on, or a hand, I don't even know what I'm saying. There's a giant squirrel with an acorn on the TV, and I'm just so confused. But yeah, I think I'm starting to get enough of a handle on how to sew that I can start doing some garments and maybe actually doing some serious sewing. But of course, I'm probably gonna sew like a zillion more project bags too. Hopefully I can kind of do a better job, because they're not exactly boxed out very well, some of these, so they kind of fall over, but I'm okay with that. So yeah, those are my general goals. And I've been watching some podcasts this week, some mostly just the most recent episodes of like Skandir Knits, love her podcast. Who else? Inside Number 23, Knitting Expat, Hey Sister. I even started watching some Mandarin podcast this week, which is really fun because I'm loving all of her her footage of Latvian mittens and things like that. I just love traditional regional world styles of knitting. That's one of my interests. So I'm just really, really loving that podcast too. So I think I will sign off now so that I can make sure that the food isn't burning, and I can keep puzzling about all of the weird stuff that's in this Thanksgiving parade, because it's just really strange. I mean, if you enjoy it, that's great, but I find it entertaining in the weirdest way. So yeah, I will sign off so that I can clean up my mess and maybe get a little knitting in before Thanksgiving dinner. And yeah, so I'm sure this won't be up before, well, I mean, it's Thanksgiving today, so it won't be up in time for this to really be relevant. But for what it's worth, I do want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving, happy American Thanksgiving, and just say I'm so thankful for everyone that's watching. So until next week, happy knitting!